All right, folks, so here we are with our assignment for today. We're going to be working through these word problems, and here's what I want you to do for each of the word problems. First, you're going to use your graphic organizer to write the equation for the word problems first. Do all of the word problems first, write the equations, and then we'll come back and do the rest of this. The most important part of today's lesson is to understand how to use the graphic organizer to write equations. So we've got about 12 problems, 12 word problems here. So I want us to write all the equations, and then we will come back to work steps 2 through 5. So let's take a look at our first word problem. For babysitting, Nicole charges a flat fee of $3 plus $5 per hour. Write an equation for the cost C after hours of babysitting. Well, this part right here is the information you need to write the equation. The rest of the problem, you'll come back and you'll answer in step number 2. Step number 2 says to answer any remaining questions in the problem, substituting the given, it needs to be given, the given value and solving. So what do you think the slope and the y-intercept represent? You'll write down just a short answer in your foldable for problem number 1, and then you need to determine how much money will she make if she babysits 5 hours. Let's work our way through this problem, and I'll show you how to use your notes to do that. So right here on the first page, we've got some steps here in this cutoff, and I'll read it for you, but you've got it on your foldable. Determine the independent and dependent variable. That's always the first thing we want to do, is we're going to read through this and figure out what are the two things that we're talking about. We need to determine the rate of change. That's the slope. Then we need to figure out whether or not the rate of change is positive, which is increasing, or if it's negative, which is decreasing. We need to figure out what our initial value is. What's our starting point? Where does this whole problem start out? That's B, the y-intercept. Then the last step is to figure out whether or not B is positive or negative. So let's take a look at the back of our notes and take a look at this part right here. This is slope-intercept form. Y equals m times x plus b. Variables are letters, y and x, your independent variable and your dependent variable. In the problem, in the word problem, the variables are represented by words. Let's see if there's any problem or words or letters in our problem that are given to us. In fact, right here we have C, and here we have H. So these two are our variables. One of these is the independent variable, one of these is the dependent variable. We're going to have to go through and figure out in just a moment. And then we've got coefficients. Coefficients are numbers. The numbers represent numbers, obviously, and those are the m and the b. So these are going to be represented by letters in our equation. These have to be turned into numbers. So for instance, we have x, the independent variable, y, the dependent variable, -2 and 5. So we've got 2 letters and 2 numbers. So let's look to see if there's any numbers in our problem. And in fact, there are. There's a number here, and there's a number here. So we've got 2 letters, 2 numbers. We're off to a good start. Now, the first thing we need to do, the next thing we need to do is we need to take a look at our graphic organizer. Let's take a look at what this looks like, and I'm going to do this example on this first page right here. I'm going to move this out of the way. Okay, so on this first page, I'm just going to use this big graphic organizer. This is our graphic organizer. What we're going to do is we're going to read through our problem. Let's see if I can get all of this on the screen at the same time. There we go. Sorry, it's a little shaky. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to work our way through the problem and figure out if we can figure out what words in the problem represent each one of these pieces. So we know that we've got C and H, and we know that that's going to go either here for the dependent variable or here for the independent variable. So let's talk about this for just a second. We've got cost, and we've got hours. We've got money, we've got time. Well, when we're babysitting, or if you're babysitting, what comes first? What's the cause? Do you babysit and then get paid, or do you get paid amount of money and then you work for a certain number of hours? I don't know if you've babysat before, but usually what happens is you babysit for a while and then you get paid. So it's usually this hours time is the independent variable and C is the dependent variable. So we can double check that. If you remember our notes that are on the wall, we can let's take a look at this flat fee. Hopefully that rings a bell from your notes. Hopefully so does the word per. So we know we're going to come back to C and H in just a second. Well, let's see what the rest of the problem tells us. We've got the words charges a flat fee of $3 plus $5 per hour. If we're going to look now at the center of our, and I unstapled mine so we could look at it. If we take a look at the center of our graphic organizer, we've got some words here that might make sense. A bunch of you asked me what this word is right here, flat fee. Flat fee, that one with $3, that's B, your y-intercept. So we just put that in right now. So we know this for sure. This is going to be 3. And so is this a positive 3 or a negative 3? Is this something that she gets paid, or is this something that she has to pay out to somebody? It's something that she gets paid. So this is a positive plus 3. And then we're going to come back over here just a second. Look at this $5 per hour. Per should also ring a bell. You know, it's a good thing I have really terrible handwriting, because a bunch of you asked me what this word is right here. It's per. Per is really important. Per is part of the multiplication. And if you look at another place in your graphic organizer, on the back of your notes, we have a list of rate of change trigger words. And look, per is right there. Per, each, every, a. Whenever you see these 4 words, you automatically know that's related to the rate of change. So per is related to the slope. Per is related to m. So let me get this set back up. There we go. All right. So we know that the $5 per hour, $5 per hour. So we know that the 5 has to come here. So the last number, it's the second number. We've got our numbers taken care of. Now let's take a look at, if you remember our anchor chart on the board, I told you that your rate of change, which is the same thing as your slope, which is the same thing as m, is your dependent variable over your independent variable. That's the relationship that's there. And in this particular problem, we have dollars per hour. Dollars per hour. If we have dollars per hour, dollars is the independent variable, dollars is the dependent variable, hours is the independent variable. So we come back here, C and H. We know that H is our independent variable. We know that C is our dependent variable. Now we need to come back and we need to check to see whether or not 5 is a positive number or a negative number. If in fact it says right here plus she's adding to, is she getting this money or is she paying this money? She's receiving this money, so this is money in her pocket. So it's going to be plus 5. And then the last bit here, is there anything that says for babysitting Nicole charges a flat fee $5? There's no specific word, but sometimes you'll see the word is. That would be your equals, and then there's no specific word for multiply, but we see here what our equation is going to be, and our equation is going to be C equals 5H plus 3. This is our equation. So we have completed the first bit of our graphic organizer, or our problem for the way that we're going to use this. What I would do now is I would go to the next problem, number 2, do the same thing with the graphic organizer. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want you to write this graphic organizer, write y equals mx plus b in this chart form so that you can list out each one of the pieces from your problem into the graphic organizer. This helps us keep pieces together and understand how it all fits together. So once we do this for each one of the problems, then we'll come back and we'll answer the question. For each question, every question is going to be a little bit different. This one asks, what is the slope? The slope is m. The slope, m, is the money she gets paid every hour. She gets $5 for every hour she works. What's the y-intercept? Or what's b? B is how much money she gets. It's the money she gets just to go, just to show up at the door and say, here I am. She gets $3. It's the initial value. This is the starting point. It's the initial amount of money she gets. And then the last question in the problem says, how much money will she make if she babysits 5 hours? Well, we can use our equation to figure that out. Is 5 hours H? Is this number 5? 5 hours, is this represent H or is this cost? Well, obviously it's hours. So we can say if she works 5 hours, we can say 5 times 5 plus 3 equals what amount of money? 5 times 5 is 25 plus 3, that equals $28. If she babysits for 5 hours, she gets $28. That answers the question. And then the next thing here is to determine the change from the parent function. So what I would do is I would take out my handy dandy calculator. I would graph this, and remember on your calculator, we would type in, let's find this spot right here. What we'd actually type in is on the y equal button, it'll say y1, and what we need to do is the calculator really only understands the variable x. So in the calculator under y1, we type 5x plus 3. We can graph this,